Hi, everyone. So, as you have completed your survey, the next thing that you might want to do is put in all your information into Statcrunch. So, basically, what I've done already is pretend that this is my survey that I sent out to my population, and I cleaned it up. Okay, so I cleaned up all the mistakes. I deleted some entries that I needed to be deleted. On the top, you need to make sure that every single column has a name. You do not want var to, like, if I keep scrolling this way, you see that there's var 18, var 19. You don't want to have that, okay? So you want to make sure that whatever the column is, it tells you that this column is going to be hours of sleep. This column is going to be a random number. This column here is going to be whether you have a pink shirt or not. So make sure that that is the first thing that you want to do. So when you're cleaning as well. So here is my data. Now, the next thing that you want to be able to do is you want to be able to graph this data. So depending on which variables you ended up choosing for your group, it will really depend what variables, what the classification of the variables are, and based on that will depend on what graphs to use. So the first thing that you want to look at is maybe if you just want to look at one particular variable. So if you just want to look at GPA, which is a numerical variable, then remember that there's many different ways that you can graph GPA. One good way would be maybe just using a a histogram. Okay. So if I click on histogram, I'm going to click GPA, and then you're going to go to compute, and it just graphs one variable. It doesn't graph anything. I don't know anything about males, females, what they work out. All I just know is their GPA. Okay. Now, one thing that you might be wondering is, okay, so I have this histogram. How do I know what the mean is, what the standard deviation is, all of that fun stuff that we've talked about? Before we go to that, notice here that there's some outliers. Okay, so this is where you might want to determine, maybe I just want to get rid of these guys. If you want to know how to get rid of them, you can just highlight it, and then you can just go to the GPA and you can get rid of it. Maybe this guy was a first year, so maybe that's why you have a 0 GPA. So you might want to delete those guys if you really want to. If you feel like they might influence your data, and when we talk about testing, we'll figure out whether we should or not. So you want to be able to describe the shape of this distribution, whatever you see. This is just one variable. You can almost see a little bit of normality. But if you wanted to figure out the mean or the standard deviation or whatever, so let me get rid of this. Let me clear this. What you want to do is you want to go to stat, then you want to go to summary stats, and then click on columns. Okay, so then let's click on GPA, and then here everything's already selected for you. So this is what it's going to give you. So let's compute. And what it does is that it gives you the summary statistics for GPA. So it tells you what the mean GPA of all these guys were. It tells you what the standard deviation was. It tells you the mean, the median, the range, so on and so forth. So it gives you a lot of information. So based on this, you can talk about skewness. You can talk about comparing the mean and the median between of the GPA variable. So yeah, so that's the thing about this guy. So what about if you wanted to look at one categorical variable? So maybe major. So I'm going to graph. I'm going to try to use a bar plot with data. So I'm going to look at major. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and just compute. So here is my, you can't even see it. So here is my majors. So you can kind of see how many people were in art, business, humanities, STEM, and undeclared. So it gives you I don't know. It's really difficult to read though, and that's mainly because of the names of the majors. But you have all of this, so you can immediately just I don't know. You can talk about these things if you really want to. You can see that there's more STEM people. Or no, wait, more humanities. So that's kind of how you want to be able to graph each individual variable, the numerical, and also categorical. Now, one of the things that you might want to be able to do is graph two variables at the same time. So many of you guys are going to be comparing numerical and categorical, categorical and categorical. So let's first start off with numerical and categorical. So if you want to graph a numerical variable with a categorical variable, what would you do? So let's say we wanted to look at maybe your major, which is a categorical variable, and you wanted to look at the GPA broken down by every major. So notice that GPA is a numerical, major is categorical. So the best way to kind of do this is to look at a box plot. So I'm going to click on a box plot. And I'm going to graph GPA, and I'm going to break this GPA variable by major. Okay, so then I'm going to go, so that's where the group by was. Then I'm going to press compute, and then you just see these box plots. So then it gives you a couple of outliers. You can get rid of these if you really want to. And then you can just go ahead and talk about these different box plots that we have. So this is what you want to be able to see. There's a lot more variation in the arts and music than in everything else. And then if you hover over it, it kind of gives you the IQR, the Q1, all the quartiles that we talked about in the beginning of the class. So you can also see that the GPAs are basically almost about the same. So there's a way to test this, and we'll do that in another video. So this is a way that you can graph a numerical with a categorical. This is a really good graph. And again, you can always if you see some outliers, it will depend up to you to decide to get rid of them or not. So that's numerical and categorical. Now, what about if you had a categorical versus another categorical? So let's say, I don't know, you wanted to look at the major with the zodiac sign. Okay, so air, fire, earth, and water. So what would you do in that case? Well, a good way to do that is using a bar plot. So if I do a bar plot, and I'm going to show you two different ways to do that. So let's say you wanted to graph, I don't know, the major, and I'm going to take the major and break it down by their zodiac signs. So when I press compute, okay, you'll see a big mess. Everything is scrunched together, and I'll show you a different way to do that, but you can kind of see on the bottom on the x-axis, it says art, music, business, humanities, STEM, undeclared, and then all the different types of zodiac signs. Okay, so let me break it down a little bit. So I think another easier way to kind of do this is instead of using split bars, just click stack bars. You might see it a little bit better. So basically what it does, here are the majors, and you can kind of see which zodiac sign tends to be in what major. So you can see that there's a lot of yellow here. So that means yellow corresponds with the water sign. So a lot of water signs tend to be humanities majors. If you look at the blue, you can kind of see that there's a lot more, and also you can see that it's also in humanities, so there's more air signs that are also humanities, and you can keep going, and we kind of already kind of knew this. You can obviously also graph it the other way around. So if you wanted to graph instead zodiac signs, so if you want to click on zodiac and then group this instead by what was it, majors, you could do this as well. So instead, you have all the zodiac signs on the bottom, and then you have each major here. So it really is up to you, whatever you like to do. I think I like this better. So you can see that there's more business majors in the water sign. And then you can talk about that. If you were doing something about zodiac signs, you can talk about what does a particular zodiac sign mean when it comes to, I don't know, business or individuality or whatever. Okay, so that's if you wanted to graph a categorical with a categorical. Okay, now if you wanted to graph a numerical with a numerical, well, the best if you're doing a numerical with a numerical, you want to see some sort of relationship. So a best way to do that is using a scatter plot. So if I look at a scatter plot, you want to think of two different variables. So maybe I want to look at hours of sleep, and then working out, hours that I work out. Okay, so you don't want to click any of this stuff, and then click on compute. and you'll see all of this guy. So, I mean, not a lot of relationship, but this is a good way to kind of look at it. I mean, there I don't see anything, and a lot of the reasons why this might be a little bit weird is just because this is discrete. It's a discrete variable, and you don't have any decimals. You don't have any, you know, I don't know. There's no really. You only have discrete variables, so it's kind of violating also the scatter plot. But anyways, this is just a way that you do this. I don't think many of you guys are going to be doing numerical with numerical. I think the other two are going to be basically what you're going to be looking at. But just in case you do a numerical with a numerical, you might want to look at that. Also see there's an outlier right there. Okay, so those are basically the ways that you can graph them. Obviously, there's many different graphs out here, but those are the three main ones that you're mainly going to see. So on your descriptive analysis portion, when you start graphing some of these guys, you're going to want to look at that. Look at the graphs and explain them, okay, in terms of skewness. What do you see? Do you see some discrepancies among different groups? So that's basically what you want to be able to do. So yeah, make sure that you really explain them very, very well. Don't just tell me this is the amount that was in this one, this is the amount that I have in that one. Actually use what we've learned in this class.